Today, we're out at a very low little lake, and we're talking about when that winter bite gets tough, what baits and presentations am I focusing on when I've just got to get a bite. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one. There we go, I got him. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a better one, kids. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and I'm out here at a very low, very drawn down little lake. I'm thinking that the river that feeds this place, or the little creek that feeds this place, has been dammed up by beavers because it was dry as a bone up there, and this place has been low for months. I don't know if they're ever going to fix that problem where it'll come back up. We've had plenty of rain, but that creek is still dry as a bone. But anyway, I wanted to come up here because we've had a lot of good videos here, haven't we? I've done a lot of great bank angling videos here. I've done a lot of videos on, working off of the little boat, and we've had a lot of fun. So I wanted to come up here and give it a try, give the big lake a rest, and see what was happening around here. But today was kind of a rough day, just like it's been rough out on the big lake. That bite, as those bass get into the winter mode, they're kind of slowing down. They're not busting up on shad as much. Things are kind of quieting down. But there are still fish to be had. There are still plenty of good bites to be had. You might just have to work a little bit harder to get them. But if you do that, if you change up your presentations just a little bit, alter a few things here and there, well, it can be very productive. Now today, I was able to catch quite a few fish out here. Nothing great. The little lake only has one trophy bass that I know of. For the most part, you're going to be in that 3/4 pound to a 1 pound range. That's usually about what's average out here. But it's still a fun place to fish. And what were my tricks today? Well, today I had to switch things up completely. They weren't really ready for a jerkbait yet. I had to slow things way down. And whenever I'm targeting something like open timber, you see laydowns that are right up against the bank and you see them going off into the water, and they're pretty clean on either side. You're not seeing brush, you're not seeing a lot of vegetation. Well, that's a great place to work in the wintertime. You can often find some bites in that area. Well, what am I using? This is what I'm using. The good old Wacky Rig. This is what has done well for me. As I said, a lot of times you've just got to slow things down. And whenever I'm seeing empty spots, places I can work this in, like say under docks, around laydowns, places that are fairly clean. I don't want to be casting this in places where I'm going to get hung up easily or grab a bunch of slop. So this is not very weedless. So I really want to work this slowly. I want to work it right into some specific areas. I'm making targeted casts with this. I'm not trying to cover water with it. I'm trying to hit specific spots with it. And a Wacky Rig is great for that. That is exactly the type of presentation you want to have tied on whenever you're working those areas. And today, well, this came through for me in flying colors. This was responsible for most of the bites that I got today. Now, nothing was a giant. They were all pretty small, 3/4 pound, 1 pound in that area. But for the most part, this is what was working for me today. I was able to target those areas around the laydown that didn't have a lot of slop. There wasn't a lot of vegetation. It was pretty clean water. So I could work this through there just fine. Now, I'm not getting right up in the gnarly branches. I'm being very careful and very selective where I'm fishing. But I could get this in there, in between those branches and along that stump pretty good. So this is what was working for me fairly well. That wasn't the only thing that was working for me. There were a couple other things that did well for me today, and we're going to talk about those too. There we go, I got him. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a better one, kids. He's not huge, but for the little lake, we will take him. We will take him for the little lake. He's maybe, oh, he's pretty cold too. He's maybe a half pound. Probably pushing 3/4 of a pound. Maybe 12 inches, somewhere in there. Good little fish on the wacky worm. Oops, you don't want to hook him again. On the wacky worm. All right, get you over the side of the boat. Appreciate it, little dude. We really do. Thank you so much. Little 3/4 pound bass. You have a great day. All right, let's go get the next one. And another presentation that was working very well for me is an old friend of the channel, and that's this guy right here, the Waco rig. You guys remember this. This is something I started doing last spring to fish in that dense vegetation and under flooded brush. This is something that works very much like a wacky rig. It falls like a wacky rig, it behaves like a wacky rig, but it's rigged like a Texas rig. What is a Waco rig? Well, it's just a 1/0 EWG hook. Now it's light wire, but right here in the body of it, I have placed a nail weight. I have inserted it right here, and I faced it down that way. I just put the nail weight in and push it down. So you can see right there, there's the nail weight. And I just push it down in there, and that causes it to fall like a wacky rig. It flutters down just like that since it's center weighted. But at the same time, it's also weedless. It's the best of both worlds. I get that wacky rig presentation, and I get that weedlessness of a Texas rig. Now, I know what you're asking. Well, if it's so great, why don't you fish it all the time? Well, I do fish it quite a lot, but there's one thing about it that holds me back from fishing it over a wacky rig 100% of the time, and that is this doesn't skip quite as well as a wacky rig. A wacky rig is really hard to beat when it comes to skipping. Now, this skips just fine, and I can get it into a lot of places, but whenever it comes to getting my bait way back in places, like way up under docks, way up under brush, then I'm going to have to put this down and pick up the wacky rig. But it's a great presentation, and if you haven't tried it, I suggest giving it a try. You'd be amazed at how well this works and how much it actually looks like a wacky rig whenever you're fishing it in the water. So like I said, just a regular 5-inch stick bait. It's a 1/0 EWG, and I just have a nail weight poked into the bottom right here. You can see where that nail weight is right there. It's super simple. Now, whenever you are doing it, make sure that you put your nail weight like that. Put the ridges pointing down. And the reason I do that is because if I put it the other way, that nail weight has a tendency to slide out when I'm skipping it, because those ridges will actually grip in the water and it'll slowly work that nail weight out. But if you haven't, give this a chance. You'll find how remarkable it is and how well it works whenever you find conditions that are just a little bit too tough for a wacky rig, but you still want to get the benefits of how a wacky rig works. Now, next up, well, we've got something that you've seen me fish quite often, and that is the good old hover rig from Core Tackle, Matt Steffen's hover rig. These things are really good because they kind of have a glide like a tube, but you can put them on anything. I rig these with a stick bait, but one of my favorite ways to rig them is with a soft plastic jerk bait. But I'm not rigging these straight. I'm actually rigging these to the side. You could rig it like you normally would right through there, but I turn these sideways and I rig them like that. Go about just a little bit down there. You want to have it maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch down. Poke your hook in and then pop it out right there like that. And then you want to take it and pinch it and push it all the way up and over the head. So you got it like that. So when you have it rigged up like this, now with a fluke, it'll still have a good bit of glide, but when you have that flat surface right there and it's laying like this in the water, it'll just glide for a long way and twitch on down. That's what I like about rigging it like this. It's a slow flutter of a fall. And in the wintertime, that can be so advantageous. It can really entice those lethargic fish that are just not really in the mood to bite. But if you put it in front of their face and just let it glide like that, they are going to have a very hard time resisting. And this is the smaller sized hover rig. I'm thinking this is either a 1/16 or a 3/32 or somewhere in that range. This is the smaller one. That's the one that I like to use. The bigger versions of the hover rig, to me, they just don't work as well for this presentation, especially since I'm not fishing it in water that's very deep. I mean, today I was fishing in water that was practically knee deep, so I really didn't need much of anything to get that bait down there. And like I said, this thing skips remarkably well, and skipping is a main part of my game. I mean, you can see all that brush back there, and I got to skip up underneath almost all of it. You've got to go searching for the bites in the wintertime. You go searching where you can, and a lot of time they're going to be up under the brush like that. So you got to have something that can skip up under there. Now, lastly, it's going to be hard to beat a good old jig. This is a small 1/4 ounce Strike King Bitsy Flip. I've got plenty of color on it today. That's because today was cloudy and that water's got a little bit of stain to it. I've got a black swimming chunk from Zoom on there and put these things together, and I was able to entice a couple of really nice bites with it. This is a great winter color for me. It's got that color that really stands out, which is in the wintertime, I tend to go with colors that tend to be a bit more bold anyway. I really want those bass to see it. I really want those bass to key in on it, but I don't want to be garish. I don't want to look unnatural. So this can still look like, a crawl or a bluegill or something that they're still going to eat, dragging slowly across the bottom. Now this is a swimming chunk, and rather than going with something like a regular super chunk or a mini chunk or something like that, is because this has got those curly tails and it adds just a little vibration to it. It adds just a little bit of kick. Now in clear water, I'm definitely going with something that's got a flat tail on it. I'm going with a regular chunk style trailer when that water gets really cold, because, well, that's what those bass seem to prefer. They don't want something that's got a lot of action. They don't want something that's got a lot of vibration, makes a lot of noise, especially as we get deeper into the winter. Something like this works great today because it adds just a little bit of something, some form of attractiveness that will attract those bass, but not something that's going to outright scare them off. And, you guys know the rig that I'm fishing this on, 30-pound braid. I've got 17-pound fluorocarbon leader, and I'm fishing this on the old Max Z, which has really done me proud. And if you want to know more about these, well, I did them as part of my buyer's guide here recently. And if you have an angler on your Christmas shopping list, but you don't have a lot of money to spend, well, this right here can be the perfect type of gift. So go check out that budget buyer's guide for Christmas 2023. I'm pretty sure you'll find some really good ideas on there, because this works so well with this combination. I've been able to catch quite a few fish, and it works exceptionally well downsizing whenever that water gets cold. It's just something I'm able to do to draw out a few more bites. So there you have it. Some easy to do tips and tricks for your finesse presentations that is sure to get you some extra bites whenever the going gets really tough. And face it, the going is going to get tough sometimes in winter. Those fish are going to shut down, they're going to get lockjaw, and they don't necessarily want to be active. But that doesn't mean if you don't put a slow-moving bait right in front of their face that they won't attack it. As a matter of fact, if you put it right in front of their face, chances are they'll very much attack it. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.